We understand it was Pakistani men who engaged in the dreadful, dreadful grooming and then rape and massive violence against hundreds of poor white girls in England. And it was covered up. And it does appear that a lot of people wanted to cover it up lest they be seen as Islamophobic, lest they be seen as racist. Uh, how would those men justify their appalling behaviour?
I've been thinking and writing about this, speaking about it for a long time. The victims are in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. There's a number of factors that come together, and it's interesting to look at the testimonies of survivors. One is that it's a religious element, so it's the religiously motivated hate crime. That is, the girls who were being raped were told they were filthy infidels and they were inferior, and they were suffering because of they're dehumanized in the eyes of the men. Another issue is that under Islamic law, conquered non-Muslims live in a state of vulnerability. They're meant to be subjected and dominated by Islam, but if they break out of that domination, they're vulnerable to the jihad. And one of the conditions of jihad is that the rape of captive women is permitted. They become slaves of their captors. This is well known, and it's part of Islamic law. And so, in societies like Pakistan or Egypt, Christians live in a state of vulnerability, and one of the things that hangs over their head is the threat of rape if they're considered to have broken the law. And so there's this huge problem in Egypt and in Pakistan of Christian girls being abducted and forcibly married off. The state will not defend them. And so, you've got this worldview that if you're not a Muslim, you're inferior, you're dirty, this is among a particular group of Muslims. Not all Muslims would think like that, but some do. And so this legitimizes this. And moreover, you've come from a culture where there's a tradition of taking, sometimes a history of taking non-Muslim girls and using them. And so these factors, these religious factors, produce an outcome that Islam itself forbids. I don't think Islam gives permission for men in the UK to do this to girls at all. It's horrendous. But the culture of Islam does set up these parameters. One of the things I've found most distressing in thinking about these events in the UK is that it is religiously motivated, but so often when people write about it, we don't even have the language to talk about that. So people speak about race crimes or ethnicity. In fact, some of those rape gangs were not Pakistani. They were Arab Muslims, but not necessarily Pakistanis. It's not just an ethnic issue. It's a religious issue. But we don't have a term for the equivalent of racism for religion. What do you call religionism? There's not even a word for it. This is one of the kind of gaps that we have in our language, in our worldview, to talk about a religiously motivated hate crime. So this is, the religious illiteracy of the elites in the UK go together with this determination to impose multiculturalism, combined with Islam's sense of dominance and superiority. It's a very toxic mix, which created a massive tragedy for the UK, which will take a long, long time to recover from.